gentlemen, Flat Earth Debate live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Refracted Curvature and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Woo!
That was a bit over enthusiastic, John. Or was that one of your children?
I can't tell anymore.
You become one of them when you're surrounded by them. Well, I like the whoops and hollers. It's good to be live. We've got a video to cover, and I'm going to immediately make my disclaimers because it's been suggested by Mush, and I'm going to invite him to give us a little preamble about why he's suggested we cover this video. But in the suggestion of covering it, I got a bit confused when he suggested that we don't critique Witsit because he's sick of doing it. Now, obviously, with it being a video that contains Witsit in it, that's going to possibly prove a bit difficult. We'll see how we get on. But nevertheless, there's been a bit of a theme, certainly on Quantum Eraser's channel, and has certainly spilled over to this channel on various different occasions, in terms of the bullshittery that is Ethereanism, or the belief in ether. And we've been exposing that based at its core protagonist, in this case, Witsit. So with that in mind, we may or may not get deep into Witsit territory today, but it is a video on Witsit, so like I say, Mush, do you want to echo the sentiment that I've just explained to the audience in regards to Witsit and maybe
Sure,
not
man.
covering him?
I didn't hear any mention of the ether in the Witsit's 2-minute intro, but he also didn't say anything about measurements or how and why the Earth is flat and how and why we know it. He was talking about whatever. I just suggest that we skip the Witsit and we go straight to the Global Believer, who still is hung on 2015 arguments, pictures from space and whatnot. And John Refracted Curvature was rightfully excited. I think everybody should be, because there's going to be a lot of gems to unpack. So Nathan, please take the floor, man.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to introduce it to the audience when I changed my stream from being members only, as I did it last night. What a weird coincidence. So yesterday I set up a members only stream after we'd finished the live stream, because there'd been a Windows update and it had changed some of the settings in OBS. So I wanted to change them back and just test to make sure they worked okay, right? And in doing so, when I first went live to members as set up members only, there's a whole bunch of people in there that aren't members. I'm looking at it going, what's going on? This is really weird. This members only stream has got members of the public in it. Today, because I'm reusing yesterday's settings for the most previous live stream, which was members only. Oops, why has it gone to private now? That's weird. Public. Now it's giving me the runaround. Oh, well, let's just do that. Okay, so today it's picked up on the fact that yesterday's stream was members only, as I set it, and then today's live stream has initially gone out to members only by accident. It's just weird that when I actually scheduled it to be members, initially at least, I think it might be something that YouTube are trialing or something along those lines, where members only streams initially go out to people that they might think might want to be members and would enjoy a member stream. They go, hey, I'll have a look at this, even though it's been set to members only, which, like I say, was weird, but that was just the way it went yesterday. But as a consequence, it means that this live stream's now been set out without any schedule, because it was scheduled for members only. So if we get a really poor audience now, Mush, that'll be why. It's my bad for not checking that it was set to public when I first scheduled today's stream. Anyway, we are now going out to the public. Let's just double check that. Yes, we are. So hopefully we'll build up an audience. Please share the show. None of you have heard my live call to action, unless you happen to be one of the 7 members watching, as I've accidentally scheduled this incorrectly. But now we're actually going out to the live audience that we should have been going to originally. We'll get back on with what we were going to be covering, which is a video about Witsit and his debate on TJump? TJump? Whatever he's called. In any event, we'll share his link so you can do the YouTube stuff that I normally call to action with respect to, which is let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a polite comment that doesn't immediately get eradicated by the YouTube algorithm, and just basically lets him know exactly that we're covering his video. If he were to make a response, hopefully put a link to my video. Is my live stream chat not quite working correctly? I don't see Divergent Droid's message in there. Okay, I'm having some issues, it seems. Let's just refresh this and see what happens. Yeah, it isn't working correctly. There are people in there chatting and it doesn't seem to be appearing. Okay, right, let's just solve that problem first and foremost. Because I do actually want to be able to thank people if they send me super chats and such like. So, Mush. I know I've already said this once, but can you explain why, when you were asking me to cover this video, you didn't want us to dwell on the Witsit bits?
So, like I said, I didn't listen to the video, but let's just hope this is one of those. Let's just hope these are the biggest platforms in the world that Witsit was talking about, where he's going to be representing Flat Earth. So hopefully he's representing Flat Earth and not Ether. And I just wanted us to cover the Glober, man, because the arguments and the stuff that's coming out of his mouth is just worth for this show, man.
Right, cool. Well, I've got all the chat working now, so you can probably see, hopefully on screen. Yes, you can. There's a link to this particular videographer's channel, so please let him know with a polite comment at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and hopefully, like I say, do the same for us. And you can actually see that link going by, so you can see I'm not just pretending to share the love that we definitely don't receive from YouTube. It's right there on screen. So I'm not saying that, even though there's a very limited audience with me scheduling the show incorrectly to members only. If you are one of the 30 people watching, please go and click on that link and let this videographer know that we sent you along. In the meantime, we're starting 9 minutes in because we don't want the preamble, and Mush has already pre-vetted this. I'm cold to this, but has anybody else actually watched this? No? Okay, well, the name of the video is Dumpster Fire Flat Earth Debate, Witsit Gets It versus TJump. That's the name of the video. If you wanted to look it up and you're only happening to listen to this as opposed to watch it. I think that's probably given enough time for the limited audience that we currently have to go and actually leave a comment. Should we get into it? Mush, you ready? I'm going to be leaning in on you to give some comment on this, you realise? Yes, Nathan.
Yes, Nathan. Yes, Nathan. I was born ready. Let's get on with it.
You were born ready. That's one extreme to the other, I guess.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, but whatever. Yeah, you just do your thing, bro, and we'll see what happens. How about that?
Okie dokie. Let's get into it.
Quick notification, folks, that I put the links of the speakers in the description for you. In case you're listening and you want to hear more, they're right there for you. So, Tom, the floor is all yours. Thanks as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, yeah, we know the Earth is a globe and not flat because we can see it. We can literally just fly up in space and see it.
Oh yeah, man. We
Did he
all
just
know it.
appeal to
All flat to
Hold
space.
on, Mush is leading you. Hold on, John. Don't be too keen. I know
It's
you're
all
filling
right,
the
man.
gap. He'll get into his stride. I promise. Go on, Mush.
Come on, guys. We all know it, man. We can all fly up to space and we can see the globe. Well, like, close the shop, man. Let's all go home. That's it. Earth is a globe.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. In the same way, we've all been to Narnia. We've all been through the wardrobe. We've all grabbed one of those fur coats, haven't we? We do it regularly. We are all participating in the journey through the wardrobe to Narnia. My bad, none of us have ever done that ever. And further to that, the people who claim that they've been up in a sky vacuum in violation of natural law are liars automatically.
Did you notice that Mush said fly out? And
He
that
did.
guy said fly up.
I didn't
There's a
catch him
difference
saying
in
up, but I
language.
caught Mush saying it correctly for them. Did he say up?
Oh, did I help him? Did I help him out?
Not at all.
Oops, my bad.
No, not at all.
Yeah, he shouldn't have said you can just fly up and see it. He doesn't believe in up. Why is he using the word up? You know?
Yeah, don't use words that only can be described with respect to a horizontal plane of reference. On a ball that you fantasize based on flat Earth measurements that are creating a ball mathematically, you only have out, not up. Stop using our flat Earth terms to claim that you're going to see a ball from a sky vacuum because everyone's always doing it. What a crock of crap.
We've put satellites in the air and we can see it. We can use telescopes to see the International Space Station and other satellites we've put into the atmosphere.
Okay, 3 problems. 1, you're observing lights in the sky. Well, that's got nothing to do with the ground unless you're actually tracking their positions with respect to where their zenith is, their ground positions, because that's useful. Beyond that, you don't know what those lights are. Now, you said the International Space Station, but we know they're faking the International Space Station because it's claimed in their narrative to be the stage show they present taking place in Narnia. Sky Vacuum. So their narrative has the ISS with men in high wire suits twirling and dancing around in what they claim to be 0G in a sky vacuum in a motion called orbital. Now, that motion that the ISS is claimed to be in is a derivative of heliocentric mathematics that has come to fruition by way of measuring Earth flat. So to suggest this reification violates the initial measurement that gives you this mathematics of orbital motion to put a stage show in front of the audience that we are and pretend they're falling around a sphere Earth that's only in existence in maths, and those maths are based on measurements of Earth flat. Go ahead, whoever it was, off mute.
He also said atmosphere. Say
Yes.
what? An oxymoron? Sphere-shaped air?
Yeah, we don't have sphere-shaped air. Absolutely correct. Air takes the shape of whatever containment it has. Pressure is the force exerted on the walls of that containment. You can only achieve it if you have containment. Did you want to add something, Steve? Steve? Or was it you, Truth? I could have swore I saw one of you flashing. Truth acknowledged. Did you want to add something? No, clearly not.
And we
I
can
think he was
just
hot mic.
literally
I
just
would.
calculate the magnification of the telescope.
Go ahead.
I would like to point out that if you're going to invoke a pressure differential, and that's what they're doing when they say atmosphere, is invoking a pressure differential. That's 2 points are required on a Cartesian plane, or with respect to a Cartesian plane, to describe it. So you can't appeal to a pressure differential on Earth. You can't if you believe you live on a sphere.
I like this. That's a new way you phrased it. Have you spent some time pondering this so that it is forced into being a flat Earth proof? Because previously, you and I have been criticised for the previous way that was phrased. That's a new way of phrasing it, John, isn't it?
Yeah, because them claiming there's an area that gas isn't filling is one thing. But what they claim is a proof of that is my problem. You don't get to say dogs don't exist and then hold up a chihuahua to make your point.
So they're appealing to Delta X to suggest they can have a sky vacuum to have a globe Earth in. Now, obviously, just previously, I've appealed to the fact that that mathematical reification of a globe Earth comes to fruition with flat Earth measurements. However, you're suggesting that when they divert your attention to a gas pressure gradient, then it's the difference between 1 point given in an altitude and another point given in an altitude, even if it's 0. And it's the difference between these 2 points. But each of the 2 points, as you just described it, are only and can only be described with respect to a Cartesian grid.
Yes, you require the plane of reference to describe it.
So don't be claiming gas pressure gradients unless you'll accept that Earth will be measured flat to describe them. This is getting more refined, so that that how can you have gas pressure without a container argument takes their non sequitur red herring appeal to delta X, that is gas pressure gradients, and turns it into a flat Earth proof on the spot. Very good. I like it a lot. Let's move on.
Telescopes and the size of the object we're looking at to know how far away it is, so we can see that they're.
No, you don't get that information from looking at lights through telescopes. That's absurd. You get an angular size only. That's not an actual size. You don't get actual sizes. Again, you have to derive that by measuring Earth flat, calculating sphericity based on minimum elevation angles to Polaris. Equatorial planes are then inferred for orbital motion around the Sun, with you in the centre of the globe Earth. So for you to suggest that that system, when extrapolated out with Huygens' assumption that Venus has the same sphericity as Earth with a minimum Polaris measurement, means that we are actually capable of measuring the distances just by looking at them, as you suggested, is utterly absurd, both in rhetorical nature of heliocentrism and their claimed distances, and indeed your statement in the first instance, which is we look at them and no, we only get an angular size, and that's not actual size. Apparent size.
They're exactly how far away they are said to be.
Nope.
And the exact size that they're said to be.
Nope. Dumb. Pay attention. Not actual size. Meanwhile, I've just rattled off and debunked the heliocentric extrapolation of Huygens and Kepler, and utilised the flat plane of reference that is absolutely required in that system. Earth must be flat for your inference that you've reified of heliocentric motion. Earth must be flat for that motion to exist to extrapolate out R-based Venus assumptions derived from flat plane angle measurements to Polaris. You need a flat Earth for these distances, my friend. Don't appeal to heliocentric utilization of R-value extrapolations when saying that you can look at stars and get their flipping distance. No, you cannot. Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Hey, John. Not too bad. Is this somebody claiming that they can measure the distance to the sun?
He's just claiming it by pure fiat. He's saying you look at it and you know the distances. That's what he's saying. Just thick.
Wow.
Well, he
so
said you can
stupid.
calculate the magnification of a telescope to figure out how far the stars are.
Nah, it's total nonsense. I mean, Huygens had to give Venus a size equal to the globe Earth he pre-assumed he stood on to even start extrapolating any size to the sun within that paradigm. So they had to make up a size to something, and they had to make up a composite, basically a geometry and a size to something after they made up a geometry to the Earth and a size to it, to try and give the sun some semblance of size in miles via diameter. It's such a load of rubbish. You know,
Well,
if
Brian,
you have to
maybe
make
Huygens
stuff
didn't
up,
know. Maybe Huygens didn't know how to calculate the magnification of a telescope. That's why he had to assume.
You're right, Mush, but
This guy knows.
Brian's focusing on the ignorance of the person making the claim in the first instance, as opposed to what Huygens is doing. He's using the example to cross-reference that Brian does actually know what he's talking about if he was to make this extrapolation on their behalf. This guy's just dumb. He doesn't know any of this, and that's kind of Brian's point, right? It's pure ignorance.
But yeah, I mean, if you look into it, they try and add as much fluff to the situation as possible, make it seem like something actually happened. But the brass tacks of it, when you get down to they take away all the fluff. What they did is they made up a size to Venus, and Huygens decided that Venus was the same size as the globe Earth he pre-assumed he stood upon, and that's what allowed them to start using trigonometry to gain a size and to a mock size, an unreal size to the sun within their paradigm. So, you know what I mean? And then when they got the size, they determined it was so far away based off its angular size for that size of a diameter. Do you know what I mean? I could do exactly the same thing as them, exactly the same thing, and it would hold the same amount of weight as them by just giving Venus a different size. I can make Venus half the size, and then the size and distance to the sun would change. And what I would do would be exactly the same, as in it would hold the same amount of validity as what they do.
Precisely.
And so we can know that they can take pictures, and it's just a camera essentially. And so without some kind of crazy conspiracy theory, we can just see the pictures of the Earth being round, not a problem.
So it's gone from you're traveling to space to you can see the pictures of the Earth being round. Well, first and foremost, round and flat aren't mutually exclusive. You can be round and flat like a penny. Secondly, you can't take into account a picture that you think is a photograph that has come from Narnia. If I show you a picture of Aslan, and you say, oh, well, yeah, that's perfectly acceptable, when I'm claiming it's come from a place that doesn't exist. By comparison, your sky vacuum, the pictures you're appealing to, come from a place that isn't real. There is no sky vacuum. The idea that we've got a 10 to the minus 17 Tor sky vacuum above our head is utterly absurd. We'd have no gas to breathe. The gas we're breathing would fill that space, if space was real, to take your pictures from. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if you want to give, like, round versus flat is incorrect. Sphere versus flat is incorrect. One's a shape, one's an aspect. If you wanted to compare it, it would be curved versus flat. That's what they should be arguing. Is the Earth curved or is it flat? Not arguing over shape.
But the sphericity in terms of shape comes from flat Earth measurements. They are the genesis of the reification of a sphere Earth to be standing in when describing the extrapolation he's leaning on. He doesn't know he's leaning on it and hasn't explained it. We have. But when he talks about scaled values for distances based on looking at lights in the sky, for heliocentrism, that is Huygens and Kepler. Go ahead, John.
That was me. Did he say photo or pictures?
I think he said picture. Do you want to hear it again?
And so
He said
we
pictures.
can know that they can take pictures and just.
Well, look, it comes down to photo or painting, doesn't it?
No, it did in 2015. Now it doesn't. It's like, it has to be fake. It cannot be a photograph. I don't care if it's a painting or not.
Yeah, but the point being is that the point I'm trying to make is what he doesn't understand is that what he would call the blue marble is just a photograph of a painting. That's all it can be.
Maybe.
It can't be anything else.
Okay, I'll agree with you so I can move on to just make it slightly a different point. Yes, it very well is the case that, is it Collins? I can never remember which one of the photorealistic artists was.
Both of them, there was Alan Bean and Michael Collins were both
Bean, the one that did the one. The blue marble
Alan
done by
Bean
Bean.
and Michael Collins.
Yeah, but Alan Bean's the one that did the blue marble that we're all familiar with, right?
Yeah, Michael Collins did other ones, but Alan Bean
He did moons. Collins did moons, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Collins was more to do with the paintings of them. But I think he had something to do. Look, the both of them were doing. It was Alan Bean is who you would give the blue marble to.
Absolutely.
Collins.
Well, I've seen pictures of Collins.
Collins wasn't involved.
I've seen a picture of Collins next to an absolutely enormous moon picture with him literally being the artist of it. You can only assume because he's sat in a position like he's painting it, but he's on a dolly rail. You know what you'd use to film stuff?
Yes.
Have you seen that picture?
I know what you're talking about, Jeff.
Right, so you can only ascribe certain, through pure inference, that some of them are ascribed. That isn't my point. I just get away from that. I've agreed with you and bolstered your point a little bit. So anyway, my point is, once you know the area that let's call it a photograph, has come from, isn't real, it stops mattering whether or not it's a photograph anymore. So let's say I give you what is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, a photograph. It's on print, it's come from a film, it's been developed, I've got the guy who developed it and took the bleeding picture with me when I hand it to you. It's definitely a photograph of Aslan in Narnia. Does it matter whether or not it's a photograph at this point? When I'm telling you, that's Aslan, a talking lion. This photo was taken in Narnia. Does it matter about what the format I hand you this information is in?
Well, I would say that, well, maybe I would be incorrect to say this, but I would say it is a photograph. It's just not taken from heliocentric outer space because that place doesn't exist, which is basically the same thing as you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying, okay, if we get into the wrangle-dangle of photo or painting, and our opponent says it is absolutely a photograph, okay, I give it you. It's definitely a photograph. It went through a lens onto some film and was developed. Okay. But the place that this photo is claimed to have been taken isn't real. Don't care if it's a photo. It's claimed to be from Narnia. No one went through a wardrobe to take this picture. No one went up to a sky vacuum to take a picture. Because there isn't a sky vacuum to take pictures from. Whether or not people are taking pictures, I know they do. But I know that the ones they're presenting with the narrative of it being from a sky vacuum isn't real. Automatically fake.
Yep.
It's just a camera, essentially.
And that's the real power.
Without some kind of crazy
Carry on.
That's the real power of the gas pressure without a container question we ask. Knowing that means that what you don't know will never contradict what you do know. You know gas pressure requires a containment. Therefore, every claim to have happened in a place that gas isn't filling is ipso facto a lie.
Precisely. You can undermine every single claim. And that's the reason I wanted to cover Eric Debay yesterday, because there's loads of stuff that he's covering, right or wrong, that we simply don't get into. But for the average Joe, in the mind's eye of your average audience member who's neither in or there about the subject, might have stumbled across it, been recommended by a friend. Please share the show, by the way. I accidentally scheduled the show for members only and then changed it at the last minute after going live, which is never good. Anyway, please share the show. But, yeah, let's just get back into the video, I suggest.
conspiracy theory, we can just see the pictures of the Earth being round, not a problem. There's also lots of things you can do on Earth to demonstrate that the Earth is a globe and not flat. Like one is you can make a big ass pendulum and you place it in the northern hemisphere and it'll like, and start it moving, it'll start to rotate to the right or to the clockwise. And if you put it in the southern hemisphere and do the same thing, it'll rotate counterclockwise. And if you put it on the
I just wanted to get his full Coriolis understanding in full. Can I just get the full?
Okay, I'll go back in this.
equator and do the same thing, it won't rotate either way. It'll just go back and forth the entire time. Now, if you
Okay, carry on.
Well, he said, when you put it in the northern hemisphere, which is back in the question, and start it moving. If the Earth is rotating, why would you need to start it moving?
Well, furthermore, if I take what he says, based on the context that he gave it, what he actually said was the pendulum will start moving one way. In other words, there's a deviation in the pendulum. Well, that's incorrect. So based on the way he's phrased it, now he might, if I was to quiz him, and he's not here to do so, I can only take what he said as read. I know I'm not reading it, but you know what I mean. What he said infers that the pendulum will drift. Pendulums don't drift. The whole principle of a pendulum is it only does one thing. It goes forward and backwards, and that is it. The suggestion that a pendulum drifts is absurd. It's the same when people say it about gyros. Like, when you tell me a gyro drifts, you don't understand what a gyro is. When you tell me a pendulum drifts, it tells me instantly that you don't know what a pendulum is. Because pendulums do not drift, gyroscopes do not drift. If they do, they're broken. Because the inherent principle of a pendulum is that it takes that back and forth motion only. Now, we may, depending on what he says next, I'm nearly done. We may, depending on what he says next, get into an undoing of a claim to be second reference frame of Earth turning underneath pendulums to give the claimed appearance of drift at a rate of 15 degrees an hour, as Earth is suggested by globe-believing numpties who don't understand how pendulums work to be turning underneath the pendulum, that absolutely unequivocally, even in globe rhetoric, only moves back and forth. Obviously, that claim would necessitate Earth turning underneath pendulums, but we'll get to that if we need to, depending on his understanding. So far, it's woeful. Go ahead, whoever that was.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that he's describing motion in a Cartesian plane with back and forth.
I love it. Love it.
Well, how does he get a Cartesian plane?
You
He thinks he
don't.
lives on a curve.
You don't. You can't have this plane of reference to describe the pendulum or gyroscopic motion with respect to.
Well, more to the point, he'd have to, well, maybe not more to the point, but equally, he'd have to refer to, which he probably is referring to, Newton's laws of motion, which require an inertial plane of reference.
Yeah. I mean, we may cover this depending on what he says next. We'll see. He may have just dropped in these claims as baseless assertions that are incorrect about pendulum motion. We'll see.
If you try to replicate this on just like a piece of cardboard, you're going to have some problems. Like, how are you going to get one of the pendulums on one side to rotate one way with the other one rotating the other way, and the one in the center going?
Pendulums don't rotate at all. Was he babbling about? Did he just say you'll get a pendulum to rotate? Hello?
What he said is that you won't be able to, basically what he said, if I want to be actually correct about what he said, you won't be able to do this on a piece of cardboard, or you're going to need a globe Earth, basically, is what he said, without realizing that's what he said.
You need a globe Earth to get a pendulum to rotate.
Yeah, because you need an unnatural situation to create an unnatural effect.
No.
Like pendulums don't do that in reality.
No. You're adding things that he hasn't said. When you say pendulum, that means something. When you say pendulum rotate, that means you're an idiot and you don't understand what a pendulum is.
Yeah, but you have to understand that when he's speaking about this, he's pre-assuming that he's on a globe Earth and that this thing will happen when he places it at different places on a rotating globe.
What he
This
thinks
is
will
what's
happen
in
will
his
not.
head.
No. I'll do all day with you, Brian. I know worries. I know you're too much empathy, my friend. No. Pendulum rotation. No, these things aren't in the same category because this isn't what pendulums do under any circumstances, globe Earth or otherwise. Pendulums do not rotate under any circumstances. If they do, it's not a pendulum.
Right, I would have to make a point here. This is a point I've been trying to make, and don't take this the wrong way, but for many years. Within his paradigm, incredible stuff can happen because his paradigm is an incredible place that only exists within fantasy. But he doesn't seem to realize this. So within his paradigm, pendulums can do that, just like pendulums can point upwards in Narnia. It doesn't matter because that's his paradigm.
Hold on.
In reality,
no. I'm going to stop you again. I'm going to stop you again. Please. No. Are you talking about him in his dipshit, idiot, ignorant world where he doesn't understand what a pendulum is, or are you talking about globe Earth rhetoric? Just let me caveat. If you're talking about in his rhetoric, as you said, then no. Even in his rhetoric, pendulums do not do that. They don't do that in any rhetoric because they don't do that. Even in his globe rhetoric, the pendulum goes straight, and the claim is Earth turns underneath with you standing on it, giving the appearance of a deflection at 15 degrees an hour. That apparent deflection is it looking like it's drifting because you are turning underneath the straight motion of the pendulum. So even in their rhetoric, the pendulum is still moving straight. Now, Earth does not turn underneath pendulums. That's stupid. But that's what they claim. But it still has a pendulum moving straight, Brian.
Yes, Nathan. You are absolutely correct. if you want to state the claim correctly, the pendulum is only going forward and back, and it's the Earth that's rotating underneath, which is complete nonsense. The point I'm making is that he, right, is so far into his paradigm that he is putting himself in his imagination, standing on a surface that is rotating, but he's seeing the pendulum appear to rotate, and then he's describing that as rotating.
Okay, fine. He's an idiot.
Lost.
Yes, he's an idiot. He doesn't understand his own rhetoric then. If he thinks that in his world of balls moving, right, we can suggest, well, wouldn't anything you dangle automatically just start moving anyway? But that's got nothing to do with Coriolis deflection, which is what he's appealing to. He's appealing to a second reference frame turning underneath for apparent deflection. But in his verbalization of that claim he doesn't understand, he's got pendulums rotating, which just means he's an idiot.
Absolutely.
Straight, it doesn't make any sense, because if you try to move the cardboard in a uniform way, if it was flat, then they're all going to rotate in the exact same direction, and that's kind of a problem for the flat Earth model. It's pretty easy to make.
The cardboard in his stupid example.
He said if it was flat. So the motion you're describing from a flat plane, if it were flat, no, not if, my friend. Why are you using the word if?
Yeah. So he's saying, if I describe, he's not though, because he's thick and doesn't know where his claim is in the globe Earth rhetoric about second reference frame turning underneath things like a straight motion of a pendulum. That's two reference frames, both flat. You need a flat plane to describe two reference frames.
It's worse than that, actually, to be quite honest with you. What he's actually stating is, how do you get pendulums to rotate on your flat Earth?
They don't.
That's actually what he's asking.
I'd love it if he was in front of us. So, I'd drag him out to the point where he's making that claim to me. So, do you explain why pendulums rotate? And I'd really belittle him to his face, metaphorically speaking or otherwise, online. So, you think pendulums rotate, do you, dum-dum? They don't. Under any circumstances, you're stupid.
To make sense on the globe Earth model, because one's on the top of the Earth, one's on the bottom, and one's in the center. So it makes.
It's begging the question, isn't it? So you assume that the reification of the flat Earth extrapolation that is globe Earth mathematics puts you on the top of a hemisphere? No, you're begging the question there, my friend. To make sense of a pendulum that's rotating. This is really stupid.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, He's describing something with respect to a flat plane when he says on top, in the middle, and on the bottom. Yeah, you're still describing those positions with respect to a flat plane, but you're definitely not standing on them because you're describing an object in reality. You're not describing where we are at that point.
Yeah, what he's describing is him standing on the face of a flat disk, then on the edge of that flat disk, then on the opposite face of that flat disk.
Yeah, to have it. Well, sort of. You're only ever describing it with respect to the inertial or non-inertial plane of reference.
I don't know how Newton's laws of motion are going to work with this pendulum. It is. It's rotating pendulum.
Also, these rotations of these pendulums also match the rotations of the
But these rotations of these pendulums, dum-dum?
stars. Coincidentally, if we look up.
In your mind, pendulums rotate at the rate of the stars. No, mate, you're thick as shit. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You're supposed to be saying that the pendulum swings forward and back, and the Earth rotates at a sidereal rate in accordance with how we perceive the stars.
How did we measure that? Like the sidereal day, the sidereal rate, as you described it. How's that measured, Brian?
How do we measure it with elevation angles, the horizontal coordinate system, throughout almost 24-hour day.
I need a flat plane to measure this then.
Yeah, it's all flat plane. You can't do it without a flat plane.
The hemisphere rotates clockwise, and look down on the southern hemisphere, it rotates counterclockwise, and it rotates.
Oh, really? You think the globe that's describing the motion of the lights in the sky has opposite directions, do you, dum-dum? Clockwise and anti-clockwise? What? All the stars, with the exception of Polaris, rise in the east and set in the west. That's it. There's no clockwise and anti-clockwise. They're not moving in different directions. That's idiotic. There's a man who's never travelled, ever, isn't it? There's a man who's clearly never looked at the sky, ever. You know what you've done?
He looks...
Oh, go on, Brian, you go.
No, you go. We're probably going to make the same statement.
About turning around.
Well, what I was going to say is he gets his worldview from moving diagrams online. Do you know what I mean? That's where he gets his worldview. He's told by a diagram made by someone who has the same belief as him that this is where you are and this will happen when you're on this side of a globe or on that side of a globe, and this is what will happen, and this will be clockwise and that will be anti-clockwise, and they're two different directions. So every part of his argument is, now I know everyone's fully aware of starting in heliocentrism, starting on a globe, a rotating globe, but everything he does when he's talking about this subject, everything involves him being within a paradigm that has nothing to do with reality. Do you know what I mean? And even at that, he can't describe it correctly, because when he says the pendulum is rotating, for instance, he's actually stating that the pendulum is what's rotating and not the surface underneath him. Because in reality, he knows the surface is not rotating. He knows, like he
don't describe that.
You know?
No.
But that's why they describe it that way, Nathan.
Just Dunning-Kruger globism, right?
You can't, but reality, hang on. No, I'm not having you do that. No. I know what's going on in his mind. I don't need to be a mind reader, right? I know what's going on in his mind. He is trying to, when he says the pendulum is rotating, what's going on with him there is a cognitive issue where he is taking reality and trying to place it into his paradigm. And when he does that, the closest he can get to his paradigm is a rotating pendulum. You understand? That means that the surface he's on is not rotating, because he knows that the surface he's on, he knows it's not.
No, not at all. Let me just disagree and tell you what's actually happening if I'm going to read his mind. If you can do it, I can do it. Fine. To counter that, pure speculation and bollocks, I'm going to do the same and say no. What he's actually done is had a surface scratch of what is claimed the globe should do. And upon reading words like apparent deflection, he's paid attention to the latter and not the former. Apparent has been ignored. Deflection of pendulum has sunk in. And then when he regurgitates that shit, it's misinterpretation of the actual claim that he hasn't understood fully when he's read it on Wiki. So when he peddles that he, because he's read it, knows the globe will produce a rotating pendulum, he thinks he's being smart. Pure Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah, but I can guarantee you, in his head, he's trying to fit what he knows to be real with the paradigm he's trying to describe as reality.
Okay, I'll have a bet with you. I'll have a bet that's not based on our speculation. I bet you £1, one English pound, none of your crappy euros, English pound, that if you were to ask him which frame of reference is the ground, you could even give him both options. Is the ground the inertial or non-inertial frame of reference? Question mark. If you went to this guy and asked him that question, I would bet £1 he would get it wrong, demonstrating admirably that he simply doesn't understand the effect within his own globe Earth rhetoric. Because if he did, he would absolutely, without question, have used the word apparent at some stage. He didn't, so I know from plenty of experience that he's just ignorant. This is just Dunning-Kruger. Not he appreciates that Earth should be turning underneath, but that don't make no sense, so cognitively he's got to defy that in cognitive dissonance. No. You're ascribing too much credit to this dumbass, Brian.
What I'm stating, Nathan, is that what's going on with him and how he's describing things is it's coming from a place of his subconscious telling him you're not on anything that's moving. So when he goes to describe the pendulum, he's describing the pendulum as rotating, because it's like a cognitive problem. It's like a malfunction where he can't describe the Earth as rotating underneath the pendulum, because that would involve an acceleration which he would feel, and he knows instinctively he would recognize that acceleration.
Would everyone agree that Brian has ascribed too much intellect to this guy? Because he's suggesting that he's not only understood and comprehended the two separate reference frames and the effects that you would feel.
I'm not stating he's comprehended anything. I'm talking about when he's trying to describe the globe Earth paradigm, he's inserting parts of reality into it unconsciously because he can't not. It's like
he's just misread. He's just not taken on board the word apparent.
I have no doubt that he probably can't understand or maybe detail it correctly anyway. But the point I'm making is that I look, you have 9, almost 10 years of experience with these people. I have too. And from my experience, what I find with them is they start describing reality and inserting reality into their paradigm in a way of kind of nearly hijacking reality sometimes, but sometimes it's purely subconscious. It's like when they talk about elevation angles without realizing it's a flat, they're detailing a flat plane. You know, they'll measure something with an elevation angle, and the baseline of that elevation angle could be hundreds of thousands of miles or thousands of miles in length, and it's a horizontal measurement, and they'll go, see, it's a globe, not realizing that what they've just done is referenced reality. Well, I'm not going to quote the show, right? Let's not do that. Right?
No, it's fine. You're perfectly entitled to your belief in this regard, because we are just discussing speculatively what we think this guy's motivation is mentally when he comes to these incorrect conclusions about rotating pendulums. But ultimately, I do stand by what I stand on. I'm not going to say you're wrong, because we don't know either way. But I would suggest it's merely a misinterpretation or just purely reading past the apparent nature of a deflection that doesn't occur. If Earth was rotating underneath this pendulum, then as you're rotating, you'd see it look like it's curving. Now, in the Foucault pendulum, they have it in shopping malls with dominoes that are attached to the ground, unlike the pendulum. Now, in their rhetoric, the pendulum swings back and forth, and you rotate underneath with the dominoes. So as you and the dominoes rotate into the straight path of the pendulum. That's their claim. Second reference frame forces the dominoes into the path of something that's moving straight. Yeah? But that means you're rotating underneath. That's a good, honest rendition of their actual claim that unequivocally does not happen. Nothing's rotating underneath anything. It's utter garbage. We do not observe this effect ever. If we did, flight times would be massively reduced as Earth turned underneath them. So we don't observe this effect. But a comprehension of what is actually described took me several years, and this wiki regurgitating clown doesn't understand the nature of an apparent deflection when glancing over it in wiki, in my opinion. He's glanced over it and seen the word deflection and understands what it means, and then had a rate given to him that's akin to something spinning. So when he describes it back incorrectly, he hasn't reiterated the comprehension I would expect from someone who appreciates that there's two reference frames to induce an effect that only appears to cause something to, as he put it, rotate. It's not a rotation, it's a deflection. But nevertheless, he's wrong even in his wrongness. We can't help that. He's dumb. But Brian, I will slightly belittle in the respect that well, it's kind of a compliment. Brian's got a little bit more empathy than I, and wants to ascribe him comprehending the awful truth that would mean Earth would turn underneath, and reascribing an effect to the pendulum in this instance to get around that fact that Earth would be turning underneath in his paradigm. I don't ascribe him such intellect. I just don't think he's understood it when he read it on Wiki.
I'm not trying to ascribe him intellect. I think you're mixing me up there, mixing up what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is that it's a cognitive subconscious thing where he's trying to describe a situation that is outside of reality, and the only way he can describe it, whether he realizes it or not, right? So it doesn't matter to me whether he's smart or stupid or in between. It makes no difference to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, from my point of view, what I'm hearing is somebody not able to describe the paradigm that he's trying to describe because he can't let go of reality subconsciously.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
So
I'll have to. Well, in that regard,
I'm not saying he understands what he's trying to do. I'm not saying that. Let it go.
Well, I was going to say we just have to agree to disagree on what his cognitive motivation might be. You know, we don't know, and we've both got very differing opinions on this, and that's fine.
Rotate, and on the equator, it just rotates straight. Stars just go all the way across the sky, just like the sun does, essentially. So all of those.
They talked about something rotating straight, and then described the motion of the stars. So the stars have a motion, but Earth's rotating straight. That's kind of like we've just laboured over a significant period of time in regards to having two reference frames, for one to cause the other in your claim that is unproven and would have the consequence of flight times being reduced when travelling west.
Things match on the globe Earth model, which make absolutely no sense on the flat Earth model.
No, this makes no sense. What you've just described makes no sense, because if your claim, if you understood it, which you don't, was to be believed, then Earth's turning underneath as a second reference frame.
Well, apparently the sky is rotating in different directions depending on
how he uses the word apparently. Go ahead, Brian.
Let me just state. So I'm going to give you a little bit of kudos or a little bit of acknowledgement. There's two things that I've noticed in these 9 years with these people. Two things have become very clear. Number one, they don't understand the paradigm they are fighting for and defending. Right, absolutely. I would say over 99% of them don't actually understand the paradigm. And when you try and tell them about their own paradigm, they don't want to hear it. They want to argue with you, right? But secondly, I have constantly noticed them adding in, it's like with surveyors where they add in a curve after they've measured the place based off a flat plane. Do you know what I mean? It's this cognitive thing. It's this cognitive thing where they can't escape reality, but they want to live in a paradigm that's outside of it. That's kind of the point I'm making. And I've noticed both things with these people. So does this guy know what he's talking about? No. I know from what he's saying he can't describe it. Or even if he was removing reality, he's not able to describe it right because he doesn't understand it right. But I also think that he doesn't realize that subconsciously he cognitively can't let go of reality. Reality is like your safe space. You know what I mean? You don't want to let go of it. Anyway, I'm not going to hold up the show, but yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Well, plus based on what he's just said, right? Because he's just described the word apparent motion when describing the stars after giving this example of the straight rotation at the equator. Okay, he's mixing up his words again because he's a wiki regurgitator. But regardless, he now demonstrates he does have a comprehension of how this was laid out to him in Wiki or wherever he's got it from, with the apparent deflection of the stars, because he just used the word. Therefore, he does have a comprehension of the apparent deflection that's described with respect to a second reference frame if the stars are being used, but he doesn't understand how that is exactly the same example when you're using a pendulum that does not rotate. We're supposed to have an apparent deflection because we're rotating underneath the pendulum. Like he's just stated, there's an apparent deflection of the stars because, according to his rhetoric, we're rotating under the stars. What, like we're supposed to be rotating under a pendulum? But he thinks they rotate. The pendulums, that is, as he described them incorrectly. So again, it's back to, this is Dunning-Kruger. Pure ignorance doesn't fully understand the effect, or he'd juxtapose the apparent deflection of the stars at a rate of 15 degrees an hour with the apparent deflection of the pendulum. But he hasn't described apparent deflection of pendulums. He said they rotate, making him a dumbass that doesn't understand his own stupid religion. But yeah, thank you for agreeing with me, because here it is, right, black and white before your very eyes. It's not so dumb that he doesn't understand the word apparent. He just used it in context correctly. obviously within his own paradigm of Earth turning underneath the stars. But it means he does have a vague comprehension. He's not so dumb that he doesn't understand the word when he first read it. But that leans into Brian's example, because when he read it for the Pendulum, he didn't take it on board. But it's exactly the same contextually, but one's got blocked out when he read it on Wiki, and the other's just been reaffirmed to an audience accurately. So that kind of leans on Brian's point. This guy has cognitively separated himself from the awful reality of Earth turning underneath the stars, giving apparent deflection as he just detailed, with the apparent deflection of pendulums. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. We're both right, Brian.
You know where you want to.
You know what, Nathan?
Yes.
Yeah, just very quickly. You know what? There's something goes on in the minds of the people we deal with, and it's like they're terrified of reality, right? They cling to this heliocentric globe paradigm, but they're also terrified of that paradigm being true. So they will cling to reality. It's like they're grabbing a bar, like a railing, and then jump into this other railing, then holding both railings at the same time. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're terrified of both positions, because one position means the other position is not true. And I think that's a kind of a thing goes on in their head.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
well, I can only agree with you now, because we've just had the example of it when he did demonstrate cognitive understanding with respect to an apparent deviation. Anyway, let's carry on.
That doesn't really make a great deal of sense. Hurricanes also follow the exact same pattern. Most hurricanes and tornadoes rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere.
Not Dumbo. No, they do not. So, no, they do not with respect to your paradigm. So the original inference is 2 separate reference frames and an apparent deflection if you understand Coriolis, which this dumbass doesn't. This, back to my court, dumbass that doesn't understand what is read on Wiki. If you're to infer that what you observe in a hurricane or a tornado is a result of the Coriolis deflection, then what you're actually suggesting is that the hurricane travels in a straight line and you observe it appearing to deflect in a curved motion. So wind moves straight, you see it appear to curve because Earth turns underneath? Utterly absurd and garbage. Where's he got this garbage, ladies and gentlemen? I'll give you 3 guesses. Type in Coriolis effect, and when Wiki comes up first, scroll down 2 paragraphs and read this crap that he's just regurgitated almost verbatim. Yeah? Furthermore, look on the right-hand side of the page where it gives you a really tiny GIF that shows actual Coriolis deflection with 2 frames of reference, 2 circles. One with a ball observed from the ground it's tossed from, moving straight. The other view of the ball from a rotating frame of reference where you see it appear to curve. That's a GIF on the Wiki page. What's this guy leaning on? The garbage that, what? Wind moves straight, but we see it appear to curve because of Coriolis deflection, with Earth turn being the causal influencer. Oh, you pathetic Wiki regurgitator.
I don't think he should
The
be talking
magnetic
about
field-
planes of reference.
He wouldn't understand a plane of reference if I gave him that question. I said this to Brian earlier, maybe he weren't around. I bet him £1 that if I asked him which is the ground, inertial or non-inertial, he wouldn't know.
Just before you move on, just for the audience, not that matters to you, but I spent several years trying to find proof. First of all, I tried to find it myself. Then I tried to find proof from our opposition that hurricanes and what's the Asian equivalent of the hurricane?
I was going to say something racist, but I won't. It would just be...
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Both of them, right? Typhoon. Sorry, I keep nearly saying tornado, and it's not tornado. Typhoon. Thank you, John. That I could find no evidence whatsoever, and I even spoke to people who lived in Florida, right? Who would encounter these things in the summertime, right, or whatever time of year. I think it's summer, and there is no evidence whatsoever that they're rotating. The first images of a hurricane are from a heliocentric globe satellite. So there's no evidence that even hurricanes even do that. So this is just arguing about whether they go this direction and the other direction. I would want the person to prove that they're doing that. First of all, prove these things are rotating. That would be my first position, rather than going into Coriolis. Because they can't. Now, that doesn't mean the Coriolis argument is not valid. Obviously, it is. But I'm just throwing that out there. It's like, the best I got was a guy got a book from the 1700s. I think it was 1780, I think it was, or something like that, where someone described the whirls of wind within a hurricane. Whirls. And that was a description from someone standing on a pavement, like experiencing a hurricane. Whirls of wind. That was the best that they could come up with, the ballers. Anyway, I'm not going to hold up proceedings.
Well, I don't mind sticking with hurricanes for a bit. I mean, hurricanes are as a result of a massive differential in pressure, right?
Absolutely.
How do we achieve that then?
Exactly. You know what I mean? They can't be had. They can't happen. Even if they did rotate, they can't happen without an enclosed system.
But when we're describing these pressure zones, we're describing them with respect to isobars, and those are described with respect to a flat plane also, aren't they?
Yep.
What about the altitudes that these things take place in? How do we describe those?
Off a flat plane.
So while we cannot ascribe non-inertial and inertial reference frame effects, apparent or otherwise, to hurricanes or whirlwinds or tornadoes, we can absolutely prove that we would require a contained system to develop these gas pressure differentials to create things like wind. And also, we'd need a flat plane, and do utilize a flat plane, to describe them and measure them. So flat Earth that's contained is absolutely required to even have hurricanes. They've got no relation or bearing on Coriolis deflection and Earth turning underneath stuff.
Apologies, I thought you were done at that point. No, I was just going to say, for him to even make the argument he's making, there has to be a flat stationary enclosed plane. You know what I mean?
Precisely.
It can't be anything else. You know what I mean? So basically, what he's stating is for the effects that happen within the paradigm that I'm believing in, right? The Earth needs to be a flat stationary enclosed plane, right? And that's what he's saying to you. He's basically making that, yeah, right? Basically, he's proving your point without knowing it. And really what we're trying to do is point out to these people that they are literally proving our point, but they don't seem to realize it.
Yeah.
That's really what we're doing, huh?
Well, every time they utilize anything that has a flat plane of reference as a necessity, I don't see any reason why we can't stop them. And we are. So you can't use that. You can't say up. Just that one word is with respect to a plane of reference. You can't have altitudes, hurricanes, isobars, the mapping, any of it without a flat plane first. Now, for you to describe any of those or measure any of those, you will use a flat plane. The fact that you can also use those flat plane measurements to create a paradigm of a ball that you can stand within and have rotating around the sun is neither here nor there. Stop using our measurements. If you want to have a ball belief, that's good for you. Just stop using flat Earth measurements to appeal to it not being flat in this instance or being a ball, because it isn't. That violates the measurements that create a paradigm, a maths, to infer a sphericity to better calculate the positions of lights in the sky. You can't actually reify it into an existence where the ground that you measured to create that system isn't flat anymore, because it violates the first measurement you took to create it. Earth must be flat. So stop using our flat Earth measurements if you want to believe you're on a ball. Just believe you're on a ball. Don't start justifying how Earth is actually a ball because of I'll use these flat Earth measurements, no worries. Stop doing that.
Like we can do magnetic field testing where we know if you take two magnets, you rub them together, you get this magnetic field, which is a bubble shape. And we can measure the magnetic field of the Earth with like compasses and things. So we know.
Sorry, Nathan.
What?
Do you get bubble shapes when you rub two magnets together?
Yes, I do. What in the holy hell is he babbling about? If you rub two magnets
Oh, no.
together, you get a magnetic field, and Earth's got a magnetic field. Is that his argument? This guy, what is he on? I'm going
I
to listen
told
to
you,
that again.
diagrams. When you
That was
listen-
brilliant.
Sorry.
Let's listen to that again.
Like we can do magnetic field testing where we know if you take two magnets, you rub them together, you get this magnetic field, which is a bubble shape.
Is that magnetic field testing? Brian, quick rub two magnets together. You basically become a scientist on the spot.
Yeah, and I'll get a bubble according to him.
You get a bubble, mate. Oh, yeah, mate. This is science.
And we can measure
Remember
the
I-
magnetic field of the
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Remember I said earlier on, this man lives out of a diagram. Well, he saw a diagram that shows this field, this magnetic field, to be basically a donut, right? So, because the diagram showed him a donut, as far as he's concerned, when you rub two magnets together, you have a donut that you can't see.
Okay. I mean, maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Earth with like
Hey.
compasses and things. So we know that the shape of the Earth is round because
Because if we rub magnets together and compasses and things, we know Earth's a sphere. Compasses, you say? What do compasses do, John?
I'll answer. John seems to be away. They reference a plane of reference. They refer to a plane of reference.
Like for north, south, east, and west and stuff.
Yeah, you have to. They work. That's how they work.
I mean, notwithstanding his utter garbage about rubbing magnets together and therefore diagrams of a sphere Earth with a magnetic donut, he's just said compasses. So you'll need a flat Earth for those compasses, my friend. They're referencing directionality with respect to a horizontal plane. Stop using flat Earth to claim your stupid ball religion that you don't understand very well.
the magnetic field is that shape. Just like any of the magnetic fields we create, the small ones with our hands just rubbing magnets together, it's going to be the same shape as the big one around the Earth. So,
Just a second,
if we were to-
Nathan.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a second. What this man is stating, and basically what they all are stating all the time, is what you don't understand, flat earther, is that all these effects that happen within the paradigm that I believe in, right, you can't explain on your flat reality. That's what they're, you know what I mean? That's what they're stating to us for
No,
the
it's worse
past
than
9
that.
years.
They're saying
Go on.
all of these measured, flat, described, flat, documented, flat things that I use as proof within a paradigm I believe are ball-shaped don't work on a flat Earth.
But yeah, see, they're looking for us to validate the effects that would happen within their paradigm if it was true. That's all they're at. isn't it? If my paradigm was true, this effect would happen. How would you explain that in reality, flat earther? I don't need to. It doesn't happen. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
you're describing a very elaborate version of what is a very basic fallacy. It's begging the question, isn't it? If I assume Earth is a ball, then anything I observe is a consequence of that being a ball. How does that automatically assumed to be a consequence of me being on a ball work on a flat Earth? Well, what you've automatically assumed as a consequence of you being on a ball is on a ball that came from flat Earth measurements. So how do you square that circle?
Yeah, well, look, Narnia, your use of Narnia has been shown without a doubt throughout this whole arena over time to be the best example. Because how do you explain, the different types of four codes that exist in Narnia when those four codes, like, how do you explain them on your flat Earth? Because that's what they're asking.
How do
isn't it?
you explain how summer can be right next to winter in Narnia? You explain how that works for you, given that that's exactly what happens in Narnia. What's your explanation for summer and winter being next to each other then?
Exactly. It's terrible, isn't it? But it is begging the question, but it's a little bit deeper than that, I think. I mean, on a surface level, that's all it is.
Yeah, well, it's
Cognitively.
initially begging the question. Then it's asking you to explain how it would work based on everyone must have the same assumption that it automatically works on a ball. How do you explain it if it's not, given that we all assume it is?
Yeah.
That's the nuance, because it's not just, well, I just assume Earth's a ball. Well, yeah, you did until I came along. Well, if I assume it's automatically a ball, how do you explain it?
Yeah. Why do objects go down on your flat Earth? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in 2024, 25, it's stop using down. That's ours, not yours. Okay, Brian, you can get the last word in, unless Mush has got anything to add.
No, I was just saying it, like, because that. I was just going to say that's the biggest eye roll ever. Then, and it's a shaking head eye roll, and I actually do that when I see questions like that. You know, how come objects go down on your flat Earth? And we still get these questions. Like, why does reality not adhere to your fantasy paradigm? I don't know, buddy. I don't know. I'm lost as to how to answer that one. Go on.
Hey, Brian. Now, how does a direction with respect to a Cartesian plane work on a Cartesian plane, brother? Explain that to me.
Yeah. Why is down on a Cartesian plane? Right, on the Cartesian plane you're claiming to be on.
No, it's why is down on a Cartesian plane if I use the Cartesian plane to create a ball with those Cartesian plane measurements? How does it work on a flat Earth if I make a ball with the Cartesian plane measurements? How does it then work on a flat Earth?
Yeah.
We got there in the end. Right, with that, I'm going to say, Mush, have you got anything you wanted to add? As it was your video suggestion in the first instance. We didn't even hear anything from Witsit. I'm sure you're pleased to hear.
All good. Nothing to add. Great cover, man.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hit me up on PayPal, Ko-Fi, and Patreon, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.